I'm Alice Harper, 32, founder, ghost, and apparently vendor. The envelope looked like a wedding invitation, elegant, cream-colored, heavy in the hand. But to me, it felt like a warning. No handwritten note, no personal message, just a machine-printed label, Ms. Alice Harper, as if someone had selected other on a guest list. I didn't open it at first. I just stared at it like it might flinch. Behind me, my office hummed, all glass, steel, and silence, the kind I built for focus. But tonight, the silence carried edges, like it knew what I was about to read. One click, one email, a list of systems, Salavana deployment, Reed's wedding launch, my architecture, my code, my name, missing. I finally opened the envelope. Reed Alexander Harper and Delilah Elaine Knox invite you to celebrate their wedding. Hartley Farm, Aspen. 2 years ago, that same farm was the site of my quiet erasure. A legal meeting, a release from Harper and Sons, a brother who smiled and said, "You're brilliant, Alice, but you've never quite fit." And now I was invited back to witness their triumph wearing a borrowed legacy built on my silence. But I wasn't going as family. I was going as the woman they tried to delete. They think I'll sit quietly at the edge of their fairy tale. Let them. Because while they toast their empire, I'll be standing in the server room they forgot I built. If you've ever been written out of your own story, watch this. Drop a comment. Have you ever watched someone else get credit for your work? Like and subscribe, because some stories don't need revenge. Just the truth, told properly. It looked like a wedding invitation. It felt like a warning. The cream-colored envelope sat on my desk like a ghost, unsigned, unaddressed. Except for the generic Ms. Alice Harper printed in the lower corner with machine precision. No handwriting, no message, no warmth. I didn't open it right away. The harsh overhead lights of my office flickered against the glass walls, casting reflections I couldn't quite recognize anymore. I'd built this space with purpose. Glass, steel, silence. But even the silence tonight carried an edge, like it knew what I was about to read. My eyes flicked to the adjacent screen, where an email blinked under the subject line. Salavana deployment blueprint. Urgent. I clicked. It was Ethan's forward from the back channel we kept. A list of modules for a project using our AI model. But nowhere, absolutely nowhere, did it list my name. Not as co-creator, not even as contributor. As if I'd never touched a single line of code. As if I'd never existed. I finally slit the envelope open. A gilded card slipped out, embossed with my brother's name in Navy script. Reed Alexander Harper and Delilah Elaine Knox invite you to celebrate their wedding at Hartley Farm, Aspen, Colorado. No Dear Alice, no We'd be honored, just sterile design. And a date, March 17th. 2 years ago, at the very same Hartley Farm, I stood in a boardroom my grandfather had built, where I was told with a careful smile and legal precision that I was being released from my position at Harper and Sons. My father's voice had been calm but final. The board has decided it's in everyone's best interest. And Reed had sat across from me, silent until he said, "You're brilliant, Alice, but you've never quite fit the family's public vision." Public vision. What they meant was, I asked too many questions. I didn't let them slap my name on projects they didn't understand. I challenged Reed when he tried to fast-track flawed integrations. I made them uncomfortable. I hadn't been back since. Until this. Behind me, Ethan paced. He didn't ask about the invitation. We both knew what it was. He just pointed at the Salavana schematic again. "They're launching it in Hartley, with your architecture, without your credit." My laugh was low. Typical. He looked at me. "Are you going?" I stared down at the cold card in my hand. Aspen, Reed, Delilah, Hartley Farm. The triumphant culmination of everything they had ripped from me, now dressed in florals and champagne. I should ignore it. I muttered. Let them rot in their echo chamber. But you won't, Ethan said quietly. No, I agreed. I won't. He tilted his head. Then how? I looked back at the screen, where our original white paper still lived in a private drive, signed by both of us, time-stamped, archived. They thought I had walked away. They didn't know I'd just taken everything I knew and built something stronger. I won't go as family, I whispered. I'll go as the founder they're trying to erase. I didn't need applause. I didn't even need a confrontation. I needed leverage, visibility, truth. So I opened my travel app, typed in the dates, and selected one way. I booked a one-way ticket to Aspen. Not to celebrate, to supervise. They didn't just seat me away from the family. They sat me with the staff. The words stung even as I tried to keep my expression still. I stood at the edge of Hartley Farm's grand rehearsal dinner tent, the spring mountain air crisp and scented with roses and wood smoke, wondering if I should have expected this. No one came out to greet me. People passed by in pastel gowns and tuxedos, their laughter bubbling in and out of earshot like champagne fizz. I was early. Or maybe I was unannounced. Either way, I stood alone for nearly 10 minutes before someone approached me. A man in a linen shirt with a clipboard, glancing between me and a list. Name? He asked, half smiling. Alice Harper. His brows tugged together. He scanned again. Sorry, I don't see you on the seating plan. But we do have extra space in the prep area. He gestured toward the rear wing of the barn, past the floral arch toward the kitchen. I followed. The hallway narrowed. Warmth rose from the stoves. Laughter faded. The walls smelled of rosemary, bleach, and old pine. Someone handed me a folding chair. We keep this table open for overflow and... He paused. Vendors. The chair scraped against the tiled floor as I pulled it out. It wasn't a dining space. It was a prep zone with metal counters, trays of canapes, and a staff meal cooling under foil. Before I could respond, Delilah walked in. She looked impeccable. Cream satin dress, hair swept back, diamond studs catching the light. She smiled, too wide, too polished. Oh, Alice, she purred, stepping inside like she owned the oxygen. They found you. Good. It's really for staff and vendors back here, but I figured you wouldn't mind. You're in tech, right? I didn't respond. Delilah tilted her head. It's just, we didn't know if you were still with Harper and Sons. I mean, not officially. I stared at her, then turned my eyes toward the main tent where the slideshow was playing. Giant screens flashing images from the new AI platform, Project Salavana. The caption beneath the photos read, proudly developed through in-house integration, powered by Harper and Sons. There was no mention of me. No name. No company affiliation from the tech side. Just a phantom system that had seemingly built itself. Ethan's text pinged across my watch. Check the source code later. Something's been scrubbed. I clenched my fingers into my lap. A woman brushed past the doorway. Monica Blake. Her badge swung slightly on her chest. Technical architect, Salavana AI. Our eyes met briefly. Hers widened, but she looked down, said nothing, and vanished into the maze of caterers and interns. No acknowledgement. Just shame. I remembered my 30th birthday. The one I spent alone in a park with a grocery store cupcake and a phone that never buzzed. 3 days later, my parents threw a surprise yacht party for Reed. It was on Instagram. His fiancée had made a reel. I sat there now, surrounded by steam and clangs, a cooling bowl of beet salad in front of me, my place card scribbled on the back of a receipt. They thought this would break me. But I wasn't here for validation. I wasn't here for cake or toasts. I came to see the system they stole and the faces who stole it. And now I knew the truth. They buried my name. But I'm still the architect of the system they're using. You don't need to shout when you build the foundation. The attic room creaked under my steps, a space forgotten by time and untouched by sentiment. Dust rose in tiny flurries as I dropped my duffel onto the floorboards. The air smelled like old cedar and boxed regrets. Nothing like the luxury suite Delilah posted on her story this morning. All champagne flutes and silk robes. This room, tucked above the rafters of Hartley Farm, had a single twin bed and a desk missing a drawer. But it had something more important. A view of the central network node blinking in the barn below. I opened my laptop. The screen glowed, the only clean light in the room. I connected to the local system. No passwords were changed. Amateurs. I tunneled into the lighting controls first, then the soundboard for the main event tent. Nothing looked wrong. But that's how you know something's off. Logs had been wiped. Not just altered, scrubbed entirely. As if I'd never touched the system. My inbox chimed. Monica. An anonymous message, no signature, no greeting. Just a subject line. You were supposed to be leading this. Inside, a compressed file. I hesitated for only a second before running a scan. Clean. I opened it. Inside were the architecture notes, data logs, source tree modifications. My name, A. Harper, had been systematically replaced across every key module. Instead, there was a generic placeholder. Internal dev node. The theft wasn't sloppy. It was strategic. They didn't just erase me. They rewrote me out of the system as if I'd never existed. I sat motionless for a moment, watching the file tree cascade down the screen like a memory unraveling. Another message came in. Ethan. Confirmed. They cloned it. Even used the same container IDs. Patent-grade plagiarism. We have timestamps. You left a shadow trail in the authentication keys. Genius. My hands moved on instinct now. Calm. Precise. This wasn't war. This was reclamation. I drafted a letter, formal but direct, to the CEO of Salavana. Subject: immediate notice of intellectual property violation. I cited the cloned identifiers, the erased logs, the deployment of unauthorized systems at Hartley Farm. I requested an immediate freeze of all technical activity related to AI integration at the venue. Then I signed it. Alice Harper, co-architect and primary system owner. I CC'd legal and sent. But I wasn't finished. My cursor hovered over a buried line of code I hadn't touched in 2 years. The back door wasn't glamorous. It wasn't flashy. It was silent. A duplicate core running under my name, waiting for my signal. I typed 3 words into the command line. Standby mode. On. The screen flickered once, then stilled. I didn't shut anything down. Not yet. I wanted the collapse to happen when the music was loudest, when the crowd was watching, when the power they thought they owned slipped quietly through their hands. I wasn't done watching. The collapse needed to happen in full view. I watched them vow forever, over a system I could shut down in seconds. The sun glared like a spotlight over Hartley Farm's back lawn, where white chairs lined the aisle in perfect symmetry. The floral arch groaned with roses and hydrangeas, framing the path like a curated memory. I stood in the last row. No assigned seat, no escort. Just the wind brushing against the hem of my navy dress and the faint buzz of power lines overhead. The screen beside the altar came to life. Polished video, glowing text. The Harper Legacy, Innovation Meets Tradition. A montage rolled. Reed in a lab coat. Delilah smiling at a holographic display. My family applauding over a server room I helped design. My face never appeared. My name never crossed the screen. I barely blinked. From the control feed on my phone, I typed a short line. Keep watching. And I hit run. The frames didn't shatter. That would have been too obvious. Instead, they stuttered. Just slightly. Enough to draw furrowed brows, curious glances. A second of static. Then a flicker of old source code flashed between frames. In white type over black. Prototype origin. A. Harper, gone in under 2 seconds. The efficient cleared his throat, guiding everyone back to their seats. Reed adjusted his lapel, unaware. Delilah reached his hand, radiant. The crowd watched them like a scene from a perfect life, applause already waiting in their lungs. I watched too, not as family, not even as guest, as architect. Across the lawn, Monica stood near the sound booth. She didn't move, but her eyes found mine. Just once. A flicker of acknowledgement. Then back to her role. I felt Ethan's buzz on my wrist. Just a heart emoji. No words. Reed's voice echoed through the mic, proud, rehearsed. He spoke of building a life on vision, on legacy, on trust. I smiled. He didn't know that trust was sitting on corrupted files. That legacy had a name he deleted. When they said their vows, the system hummed quietly behind them. Silent, alive, loyal to its true creator. The guests clapped. Cameras clicked. Champagne corks echoed. Reed kissed his bride. And the screen behind them blinked once more. A. Harper. Then nothing. The system they built their future on just blinked my name. They toasted to success. I froze the servers. The greenhouse shimmered with morning light, the glass ceiling reflecting soft ripples of gold across the room. Tables were set in meticulous order, mimosas poured, name cards glittering beside fruit platters. Guests strolled in linen suits and floral dresses, exchanging congratulations as if the wedding were a merger and brunch the press conference. A large screen faced the central aisle, flanked by displays showcasing the next generation of Salavana's AI collaboration. This was supposed to be the unveiling of Phase 2, environmental response automation, real-time adaptations to farm climate, intelligent resource balancing. It was also the final act of the Harper family illusion. Reed stood at the front, holding a champagne flute, voice smooth, forced. We thank you all for your trust. With Phase 2, Harper and Sons and Salavana will redefine sustainable technology. As we speak, our AI is about to demonstrate. Nothing happened. The screen blinked once. Then static. The LED uplighting dimmed unevenly. A low hum buzzed from a dormant HVAC system that refused to engage. Reed glanced at the technician, who tapped the tablet twice and shrugged. Just a small delay. Reed said quickly, smiling too wide. We'll have it up in just a moment. The guests murmured. Phones were raised, eyebrows lifted. At the front table, Thomas Harper leaned forward, his fingers curled under his chin, jaw tight. Delilah sipped her drink and laughed softly at someone's joke, oblivious. I walked in then, not from the guest entrance, but from the side corridor. I didn't wait for a nod. I moved calmly, placing a single document folder in the center of the banquet table. The printout bore Salavana's letterhead. The signature at the bottom, mine. Reed's smile froze. He stepped forward, hand outstretched. Alice, what are you doing? Before he could touch the folder, a hand intercepted. The woman from Salavana, tall, composed, with a silk scarf tied perfectly at her throat, took the file and opened it silently. She read for 15 seconds. Then her eyes met mine. This signature is verified? I nodded. Original protocol. I retained licensing authority. I sent a legal freeze order 3 days ago. Reed's voice cracked. You can't just show up and... But Monica spoke before he could finish. Calm, measured, unshaken. The source node confirms. The development logs were originally tied to Alice Harper's private registry. I warned Reed this might happen. Gasps rippled. Phones flashed. Someone dropped a fork. The Salavana representative closed the folder and turned to Reed. Until this is resolved, all collaborative deployment is suspended. Effective immediately. Reed didn't say anything. His lips parted, but nothing came. Thomas stood. Whether to protest or to manage optics, I couldn't tell. But even he looked shaken. I met their eyes. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move further. This isn't sabotage, I said. This is reclamation. They wrote me out of their story. I rewrote the ending. The office at Salavana was nothing like the glass towers of Harper and Sons. It was warm, almost quiet. Plants lined the walls, and sunlight filtered through wide windows that actually opened. A simple table held the contract, printed on thick paper. No fanfare. My name was typed clearly at the top. Alice Harper, principal architect and independent partner. No middlemen, no family proxies. Just me. Ethan sat across from me, fingers laced, eyes scanning every line for the third time. "It's clean," he said, passing the folder back. "It's yours." I signed. It was not a triumphant signature. No bold flourish, no exclamation in my heart. It was precise. Decisive. A full stop on a chapter that never really belonged to me. On the wall screen nearby, the Salavana internal feed showed Hartley Farm. Technicians packed up consoles, unbolted sensors, pulled cables from the greenhouse roof. The server core was being lifted out by crane. No interviews, no statements, just quiet dismantling. Reed hadn't shown up to his own shareholder review. Word had spread quickly. Plagiarism, IP violation, potential fraud. Internal auditing placed him on indefinite suspension. Harper and Sons scrambled to protect what little reputation remained. Thomas sent a letter. No apology. Just one sentence. "We'll see you again, Alice. Don't think this is the end." He still didn't get it. I didn't need it to be the end. I didn't need him to vanish or fall. I just didn't need to carry any of them with me anymore. I opened my own company ledger on my tablet. My remaining shares in Harper and Sons blinked at the top of the screen. Still untouched. I tapped the button. Transfer. Destination. A foundation for underrepresented girls in tech. Effective immediately. There was no fanfare, no camera flash. Just one less thing tying me to a family that once decided I didn't fit their mold. A ping lit up my inbox. Monica. Subject. "If you're building something new?" Inside, a simple message. "Count me in. I want to work for someone who doesn't need a last name to lead." I smiled. The first real one in a long time. I stood, tucked the signed contract into my folder, and nodded to Ethan. "We're done here." Outside, the air was brisk. The city pulsed with quiet energy, unburdened by legacy or expectation. I didn't look back at the building. I didn't need to. Let them keep the farm. I have the blueprint. The legacy they tried to erase became the very force that dismantled their illusion of power. From the moment they crossed Alice Harper out of their narrative, they assumed the silence they forced upon her would endure. But silence is not the same as surrender. What they mistook as retreat was, in truth, a recalibration. The quiet architecture of justice being drawn behind closed doors. And while they toasted to their illusion of control, they never noticed the cracks forming beneath their stage. Alice never raised her voice. She didn't need to. When lies are dressed as legacy, it takes only one undeniable truth to unthread the seams. Every humiliation they orchestrated, seating her with the staff, stripping her name from the documents, assigning her attic rooms and hollow smiles, became bricks in the structure of her quiet resistance. Her vengeance was never theatrical, never loud. It was methodical, precise. She chose to rebuild herself in the shadows of their arrogance, not because she was weak, but because she understood something they never did. True power does not perform. It endures. What unfolded at Hartley Farm was not a sabotage. It was a reclamation. The system they had flaunted as theirs was not just built by her hands. It was envisioned through her trials, refined through her resilience. They deployed it with her name removed, her signature wiped, thinking innovation could be inherited like family heirlooms. But technology doesn't answer to lineage. It answers to authorship. In the end, Alice did not stand over them with bitterness. She did not weaponize her success to shame or destroy. She simply held up the mirror and let them see what they had become. A family so obsessed with their own reflection, they forgot who helped build the frame. Justice, as always, did not come with a grand gavel or public apology. It arrived in subtle withdrawals, the suspension of a partnership, the freezing of a server, the steady unraveling of false credit. And yet, In those seemingly small reversals, the entire empire shifted. The public saw it. The partners understood it. Even Reed, though he never said a word, knew it the moment the brunch lights failed to respond. The system he promised could never be tampered with had blinked back with the name they thought they'd buried. But this wasn't just about names on documents. It was about identity, about what it means to be written out of your own story, and to find the courage to reclaim authorship without needing their permission. In a world that still too often rewards polish over substance, connection over competence, Alice proved that erasure is not the end. Sometimes it's the clean slate one needs to build something bolder. She didn't return to Harper and Sons. She didn't ask for reinstatement or legacy shares. She didn't even keep her stake. She gave it away, because her future was never meant to grow from their soil. It needed new ground. And she found it in the pages of a new contract, one written with integrity, not inheritance. To anyone watching from the outside, it may have looked like a quiet ending. No courtroom battle, no viral exposé, but in that silence was a statement. Justice, when born from truth and built with intention, does not need applause to matter. Like the final chord of a long-forgotten melody, justice may arrive late, but it resonates powerfully once it's heard. And sometimes all it takes to shift the arc of a legacy is one woman, underestimated, uninvited, refusing to disappear. Let this be a reminder. No wall of lies can stand forever against the tide of truth. And when injustice is met with unwavering courage, the final verdict can echo through a lifetime. Let them keep the farm. She has the blueprint. Justice didn't come with applause. It came quietly, like a system correcting itself. And in the silence that followed, I didn't feel rage or victory. Just release. This wasn't a story about revenge. It was about reclaiming authorship. They wrote me out. I rewrote the ending. If you've ever been the one they tried to forget, tell me in the comments. I read everyone. Like this video if you believe quiet power is still power. Subscribe for the next chapter, because the next story is even colder. It's called, They Used My Grief to Steal My Mother's Company, so I turned her diary into evidence. And this time, it's not just about memory. It's about inheritance. And what happens when the quiet daughter stops playing nice? Demo scene starts here. You can wear your little tailored blazer and call yourself a strategic partner all you want, Natalie. But let's not pretend. You were always the spare, the extra child. We gave you piano lessons while Vanessa saved lives. We paid your rent while Connor built a firm. You weren't raised for legacy. You were raised not to embarrass us. That's what my mother said, at my grandmother's will reading, right in front of everyone, like I was never part of this family to begin with. Hi everyone, my name is Natalie Green and I'm 28 years old. Have you ever been treated like the extra? The invisible one in your own family? Like someone they only kept around out of pity? If so, stay with me. Because this isn't just a story about being humiliated. This is how I turned their contempt into power, and silence into a quiet revolution. The mahogany dining table gleamed under the chandelier's light, every glass and silver utensil meticulously arranged like an over-rehearsed play. The chair at the head, Grandma Ellie's, stood out with its black satin cover, untouched and untouched. Still, they all acted like her absence meant nothing. As if the matriarch of the Green dynasty hadn't died 3 weeks ago. I sat quietly, third seat from the left. Not close enough to the center to matter, but just within reach of a cutting remark. Vanessa, in her snow-white blazer dress, beamed like a politician on the campaign trail. The medical board just extended my credentials for another 5 years. Honestly, it's exhausting being this needed. Connor laughed, his Rolex catching the light. Vanessa, you say that every year. Some of us are trying to build things from scratch. Ever heard of venture capital, or do they not teach that in med school? Dad, stiff in his double-breasted navy suit, chuckled approvingly. Now that's my son. Ambitious, just like Ellie was at that age. Mother raised her glass, crimson nails curled like claws. To success. I didn't raise mine. Vanessa turned to me like she'd just noticed I'd crashed the party. Still freelancing, dear? Or are you finally considering something stable? I met her eyes and smiled. Soft. Unbothered. Still freelancing. What I didn't say, the LLC they thought was just freelance consulting was Phoenix Strategic Partners. What they didn't know, Phoenix had quietly acquired the financial management arm that oversaw Green family assets last summer. What they'd never guess, I had access to a sealed document in Ellie's handwriting granting me discretionary authority. Grandma had said it, her voice rasping through oxygen tubes just days before the stroke took her. Let them overlook you, Natalie. Power strikes best in silence. I let the moment pass. Vanessa resumed her story about a neurosurgical symposium. Connor checked his phone every 30 seconds. Dad kept staring into his wine as if it had the stock market's secrets swirling inside. Ellie's chair remained untouched, its presence louder than any of us. Dinner moved forward like a machine. Roasted duck, balsamic reduction, truffle something, fake laughter layered over years of resentment. Dessert came and went. As plates were cleared, Mom leaned closer, her perfume cloying. You'll be at the will reading, I assume? Not that it'll matter for you. Of course, I said, voice calm as the blade of a knife. I wouldn't miss it. That was when my phone buzzed.